Jamaica, our way of life is being affected, but our path to progress is not. Flow has continued to build its network infrastructure to prepare for times like these, to ensure that your connections to everything important are strong and reliable. And if you're a current Flow Home Service customer, upgraded services may be available in your area. Learning from home is smarter, and working from home is stronger than ever. The strength of the Flow network is yours and ready when you need it. Visit your nearest Flow store or discoverflow.co. It's our privilege to serve you.
Dressed in red and jeans that's too short. I know that it can't fit me anymore. Was just a boy, so I could only cry. And my mom took me to the schoolyard. That's where I rushed out of the car. It's gloomy, but that's what I like. Is it so bad? I love the sun much less than I do the moon. Is it what I like? Pale blue, painted on the sky. School breaks were always just too far. It always broke me down when we were apart. Was just a boy, so I could only cry. Afternoons were mostly the best part. Soft ground, moist from the rain warms my heart. Impatience wore down on my mind. Is it so bad? I love the sun much less than I do the moon. Is it what I like? Pale blue, painted on the sky. Is it so bad? I love the sun much less than I do the moon. Is it what I like? Pale blue, painted on the sky. Is it so bad? I love the sun much less than I do the moon. Is it what I like? Pale blue, painted on the sky.
Hi everyone, my name is Lisa and I'm the Toon Boom rep for the Caribbean. We are so excited to be part of the Kingston Animation Conference again this year. It is right around the corner, so get ready. Toon Boom has been supporting Kingston since before the start of the first conference in 2013. And what I love to see is just how much the animation industry has changed and how much it's grown since then. It's always a pleasure to come back here. You get to hear great speakers, to connect with the artists, the students, and see all the great stories that are shared and created here. If you're just getting started in animation, it only takes a couple of steps to get your idea out there, and we're happy to show you those steps. Connect with us during Kingston and join me on our exclusive Harmony demo. Register through the Kingston website and stick around for the live Q&A afterwards, you'll see. We will also be handing out some exciting prizes during the festival, so follow along. And I can't wait to see you there.
next session is designed for producers of kids' content. This one's an instructional session that will give you the essential ins and outs of crafting a show Bible for genres that target age groups 3 to 6. Now, animators know only too well that the right pitch could make or break a project. Our presenter for this session is a bona fide pitch master who will give you a step-by-step approach to delivering pitches with punch and prepare you for meetings with investors and broadcasters. He founded Little Airplane Productions and created Obi and Wonder Pets for Nickelodeon. He also won multiple Daytime Emmy Awards for his work as a writer on Sesame Street. He is none other than Josh Selig, founder and president of China Bridge Content. And just a reminder that the live chat is active, so you can ask Josh all your questions right over there. Now, without further ado, let's welcome Josh Selig.
Hi, everybody. My name is Josh Selig. I'm the founder of a company called China Bridge Content. I'm also the creator of a lot of preschool shows. So I created a show called The Wonder Pets from Nickelodeon, a show called Third and Bird, which was on the BBC and Disney, Small Potatoes, also on Disney, and a few others. So I'm sort of a one-trick pony, and my trick has been creating preschool content. And so today the organizers of Kingstoon asked me to come and meet with you guys and talk about how I put together preschool show Bibles. And these are really important tools because it's the show Bible that is what you pitch to the potential buyers, platforms, investors to get them interested in your IP. And I really think that the creation of the Bible is the most important step in anybody's presentation or in anybody's ambition towards making a preschool show. So let me get started. What is a preschool show Bible? So it has many functions creatively and commercially. First and foremost, it captures the DNA of your show in a very short graphic document, usually between 10 to 20 pages long. Highly visual. Remember, you're pitching to people who are used to looking at pictures. They tend not to be very big readers. So the more graphic your Bible is, the better. Your Bible is your primary sales tool. When you sit down in an office or at a market or on a virtual pitch, everybody's going to want to see your Bible. So typically, it's the document that you pitch with. And I highly recommend that after creating your Bible, you do a lot of practicing because the presentation of your Bible is often as important as the contents of your Bible. The other thing that's really important, which a lot of people underestimate, is that your Bible is sort of your calling card in terms of you and your studio's creative standards. So if there are typos in your Bible, if there's some sloppiness, or if it's not finished and you say, oh, I'm going to add a page here later, any of these kinds of hiccups in your Bible tend to reflect very badly in the eyes of a buyer. Why? Because if they're going to work with you, they want to know that you really care about details. So getting your Bible right, highly polished, is really important because whether it's consciously or unconsciously, they're evaluating everything about your pitch. So proofreading is really important. Getting your page numbers correct is important. Making sure it's really polished, really finished is very important. I tend to look at show Bibles as triangles. They have three sides, and those sides are the writing of the Bible, the design of the Bible, and since we're talking about preschool, typically a curriculum, which is the educational side of the Bible. I see a lot of Bibles that have two out of the three sides. So sometimes they're really beautifully designed and they're very well written, but there's not really messaging there. There's not really substance. And for the preschool community, most people really want to know that there's something of value within this content. Other times I see Bibles that really don't have sophisticated storytelling, but they have great dynamic design. So making sure that you shore up your Bible on all three sides is important. And that may not be, those three skill sets may not be skills that you yourself have. For example, I'm not a designer, I'm not a curriculum person, I'm a writer. So I always write our Bibles, but then I work with others, great designers, great curriculum people, to fill out my triangle. And likely this will be the same for you. And it's important to be very honest with yourself. You know, am I an early childhood expert? And if the answer is no, find one. And ideally, they should be someone who works in media. A lot of people will say, I had a preschool teacher write my curriculum. And not to take anything away from preschool teachers, it's a different medium being in a real classroom than doing curriculum for content. So there are a handful of folks in different countries all over the world who really specialize in doing the curriculum for TV shows. And it's really worth seeking them out because it's a very specific type of expertise that they bring. So I want to talk about the kinds of writing that typically appear in show Bibles. There's, of course, the overview. This is typically your first 1 to 3 pages, a very simple description of your content. A lot of people tend to overwrite their beginning, and they tend to be very text heavy. I am a big advocate of simplicity. Tell your story in simple language so they get it. They understand what your content's about. After this is typically character descriptions. Again, shorter is better. Just be really clear, be really simple. I'm going to show you some examples of these in a few moments. The formal features of your show. Now, what differentiates a TV show from, say, a movie is that there are certain recurring elements, and this is particularly true in a preschool show. There's a certain familiarity to the structure of preschool shows. Little kids really like that. They like being able to predict that at this point in the show, something's going to be solved, something's going to be resolved. They like knowing if there's a big song at the end, they want to be part of that. So there's a certain amount of predictability in preschool, which doesn't mean that it gets repetitive. It doesn't need to. You still have to riff and make every episode fresh and original, but your Bible should capture your formal features. It should say really clearly, and it should lay out over a few pages, these are the kinds of things that happen in every show. Then there are some synopses. I only recommend 3 synopses, and I think they should be pretty short. I've seen Bibles where people write synopses for all 52 episodes of the first season. It's really not necessary. People aren't going to read that many. Keep in mind that your Bible is mostly a sales tool in their eyes. They want to see if they like what you have. So you don't want to overwhelm them with detail. And that includes you don't want to overwhelm them with story synopses. And also, if they're too long, people tend not to read them. So really short, just think of a few clear sentences that capture what each of those plots would be. And if you want, you can have some art be a part of that. And then there's the summary. So these are the writing side of the triangle. And as I say, I'll show you some examples in a minute. Design. So design is obviously a critical part of any preschool Bible. And obviously, there's going to be your characters and your backgrounds. Now, one thing that I really encourage you to do in your Bible is to present the characters and the backgrounds in the context of the stories that you're telling. So I don't recommend having a bunch of pages of empty backgrounds and a bunch of pages of character turnarounds. This is more what you would see in a production Bible, you know, that an animation studio would put together. It's not what you would expect in a pitch Bible or a presentation Bible. So much better to include the characters and the backgrounds in elements of stories. And I'll show you examples of that as well in a moment. And then the third side of the triangle is the curriculum. As I mentioned, if you can work with someone who specializes in this area, it's always helpful. It gives a certain amount of credibility to your property. So if you're dealing with something that's environmentally related, if you have someone who's an expert in that area, who works in the kids media space, who's advising you, who's drafted that curriculum document, it always helps. It gives substance to your message. The curriculum documents don't need to be long. Most shows, if they have them at all, they're usually 2 or 3 pages long. If you're making a show for a public broadcaster, sometimes they require a much more robust curriculum, and I've seen them be 20, 30, 40 pages long. But for most networks, most buyers, a short curriculum will suffice. And typically, especially for the North American market, there's an emphasis on soft curriculum. This means goals that are more gentle, that are woven into the story in a really natural way. And these could be anything from emotions, community, cooperation. So these kind of pro-social, social, emotional types of goals are often considered soft curriculum. The other kind of curriculum, hard curriculum, is what you'll see on some of the public broadcasters. Hard curriculum refers to things like science, math, literacy. These are much more technical in the curriculum side. They require a lot more experts in the writing of the shows, a lot more oversight, because you're really promising to provide some hard skills. And typically when a show gets commissioned that has hard curriculum, there's both formative testing and summative testing to see if you've actually delivered on the promise of your curriculum. There aren't really that many hard curriculum shows out there anymore, but certainly there are some, and there are some great public broadcasters who commission those shows. But I recommend for every preschool show having some kind of curriculum, even if it's a very modest, short curriculum. So I'm going to show you two preschool show Bibles today. These are both Bibles that I worked on at different times in my career. Both of these Bibles led to production, so they were produced, and these Bibles led directly to getting funding. The first was a short form series. Short form means usually anything from a minute to 4 minutes. These were 1 minute episodes. They were nonverbal. And I'll walk you through this pitch deck very much like I would have walked a broadcaster through the pitch deck. So this show is called The Olive Branch, and it's all about tolerance. And this show is about two characters. One is named Red, one is named Yellow, and they live together in the branches of this beautiful olive tree. But these two friends are as different as two friends can be. In fact, they're so different, they're hardly even friends at all. You see, they're really different. Yellow is a very quiet guy. He likes his garden, he likes reading, he likes gentle music, whereas Red is a bit of a lunatic. He likes to dance at night, he stays up late, he wears fruit on his head. He just has a very lively spirit. So this is a show about their lives together in the olive tree. And it shows that you can have two characters with very different perspectives, and they can reach peaceful, amicable solutions to all of their problems. I should also mention this is a non-verbal show. So the stories are told only with visuals and beautiful music. So as I said, they're 1 minute episodes. And what I'm going to show you now is the way a story would play out. So this is the way an episode would look. So one evening, Yellow was getting ready for bed and he heard the most awful racket. It was Red, who was nearby playing on his strummy. Yellow explained to Red that he needed to sleep. Red explained to Yellow that he really needed to play his strummy. They just couldn't agree. They became very angry at one another. And then at the very same time, they got an idea, something that would make them both happy. Red decided to play a gentle lullaby on his strumming, and this helped Yellow to fall asleep. And this was a happy resolution to this 1 minute piece of animation. In terms of a curriculum, I worked with a woman named Dr. Laura Brown, who's very well known in the kids community. And she drafted a very simple curriculum statement for this show. I won't read it to you here, but you can read it. And it's really just about tolerance, accepting differences, understanding that people have different perspectives, but you can always find solutions. And now I'd like to play for you the 1 minute animation that was based on this pitch Bible. And there were other episodes as well, but this one will illustrate the connection, the close connection between what's in the Bible and what's in the ultimate show. So I hope you enjoy this 1 minute of animation. So that is the olive branch. And I want to shift now to a second Bible, which has a very different energy in every regard from the olive branch. So this is a Bible for a show called Super Wings. This is something that I wrote with and for a Korean company called Funny Flux. And they had a toy partner, which is Alpha, which is a big Chinese toy company. And they had at that time a concept, which was planes that turn into robots, but they didn't really have a show at that stage. So this is the Bible that was written and produced with them and for them. And this is for a long form show. Long form shows tend to be anywhere from 7 minutes to 22 minutes at the longest. This is for 11-minute episodes. 11 minutes, a pretty standard length in preschool world. So this is the Super Wings Bible. And as you can see, even from the font on the cover, this is a very different proposition from Olive Branch. Olive Branch had a very quiet energy. It was part of a nonprofit initiative, hand-drawn animation. Clearly, when you look at the cover of the Super Wings Bible, you can see this is energetic, it's toy-driven, or toyetic, as some people like to say. But it still has structurally all of the same issues and all the same elements of the olive branch. And as I walk you through this Bible, I just would encourage you to keep your eye open for how those structural elements are similar, because I believe that the same structure applies to any kind of Bible that you would do. Always has this triangle I'm talking about, always covers the same elements, but they can cover them in different and highly unique ways. So this is the Super Wings Bible. This is quite a long Bible. So I'm not going to read every page, but I'll walk you through it. So Super Wings, it's a new action-packed preschool show about an adorable jet plane named Jet who travels the world delivering packages. While he's delivering packages, he always runs into some problem, and he needs his friends, the Super Wings, to help him solve those problems. So these aren't just regular planes. These guys can transform into robots, and these robots can do extraordinary things. They can dig, they can dive underwater, they can go into the sea. So in every episode, they have an adventure in a new place. In one episode, for example, Jet delivered a costume to a girl in Rio. She needed it for her big samba dance performance. When they arrived, it turned out she also needed some dance lessons. So Jet and the Super Wings helped the girl learn to samba, and they even performed with her. In another episode, this was in the Sahara, there were some kids, they really wanted to play in the snow, and Jet and the Super Wings ended up airlifting an iceberg to them so they could play in the snow for the very first time. So again, very action-based, very visual, different locations. So Jet lives in the World Airport with his friends, the Super Wings. They have a very friendly air traffic controller. He gets a call in the beginning of every episode and dispatches Jet and his friends to different locations. They have a signature phrase that they say in every episode: Super Wings, we deliver. How we have our character pages, there's a lot of these, so I'm going to go through them relatively quickly. But as you can see, the description is really short. I sometimes see Bibles where there'll be 2 or 3 pages of character descriptions, and people tend to glaze over with that much text. This is a really simple description, very simple images. There aren't turnarounds, just a good hero pose. This obviously shows Jet in the air, also shows him in robot form. Similarly, this is Dizzy, who's one of his friends. She's a rescue helicopter. Donnie, who's all about his tools. And again, very simple character descriptions. We don't say a lot about them. But again, this is not a production Bible. It's not a writer's Bible. This is a pitch Bible, sales Bible. Roy, who's a luggage cart. Jimbo, who's their air traffic controller. Jerome and Grand Albert. One of the things that you'll notice in general in the preschool industry is if there are toys associated with the show, then often that show has a lot of characters. Why? Because they want to make sure that there's a lot of product that they can sell. And then there's typically also some sort of a home base that typically becomes a toy as well. Paul and Bello, two more characters, Sammy and Tom. So then now we get to the formal features part of the Bible. As I mentioned in the beginning, the formal features are the things that happen in every episode. And when you're pitching, it's really important to show the buyer, the broadcaster, how an episode plays out. Because even if it's clear in your mind, if you only have it represented with text without visuals, it's often hard to follow. So in this particular Bible, we broke out the first episode, pilot episode. Now this was done far before the pilot ever being produced. All of this happens before any animation. But here's how an episode would work for Super Wings. One day, Jimbo gets a call from two brothers, Akash and Remy, and they have to deliver a special package to their home in the Himalayas. So they take the package as fast as they can to the Himalayas, and the kids open it, and there are some pieces of a kite to put together for the big kite flying festival. While they're doing their assembling of the kite, these two mischievous little red pandas come into the scene, and they end up getting onto the kite, and they get blown away by a gust of wind. So the kids and Jet are very concerned because now these two young red pandas are off into the sky. So Jet flies after them into a canyon in the mountains. He has to do some expert flying tricks to keep up. And during this chase scene, the kite gets blown into the mountain. It gets caught on a tree. Jet tries to rescue them. He gets his foot stuck. It's time to call the Super Wings. So he calls home base. They dispatch the Super Wings, his friends, and they come soaring over. They rescue Jet. They fix the kite. They get the kids to the kite flying competition just in time. The red pandas get to fly along in a little basket underneath the kite. So everybody's happy in the end. And so you can tell very clearly what the episode is about based on these formal features. Now we proceed to the synopses. As I mentioned, I'm a big fan of just doing a few of these and not having them be too long because I want people to read them. And so here we focused on 3 different countries and 3 different cultures for the 3 synopses. The first was a shadow puppet episode, which took place in Beijing. There was Great Gondolas, which was a Venice episode. And then there was like a Hollywood lights, camera, action episode. And again, these are just a few sentences to describe what happens in each of these episodes. And the idea is to really help a broadcaster understand that if they pick up this show, these are the kinds of places they'll go, the kinds of stories that will be told. And it gives them a sense of the range of the episode. So, for example, you wouldn't want to say in your synopses, they're going to go into outer space 3 times, unless the whole show is a space show. You want to show variety in your synopses. You also want to convey that there are different kinds of storylines, even though they all fit the formal features of the series. Now we get to a more complex, robust curriculum. This was written by a woman here in New York named Dr. Beth Richmond. Sorry, Beth Richmond. She's not a doctor. She has a master's in education, and she has worked for a lot of companies, including Sesame Street and Nickelodeon and others. And she's really terrific at crafting curriculum around individual shows. So in this case, what I and the partners in Korea and China wanted was a curriculum that would emphasize the travel element of the show and also the problem-solving element. So Beth had suggested these 2 goals. The first one is introduction to cultural diversity. And I won't read every word, but basically in this goal, it emphasizes that in the series, the characters will travel to a variety of different countries. And while they're there, they'll have a variety of experiences involving the landscape, the language, animals, food, clothing, holidays, tradition, games and toys, folk tales, songs, dance, and crafts. So once we got to the actual writing of the episodes, Beth also stayed involved, and she checked the scripts and provided information to the writers to make sure that they were crafting those stories with these cultural elements in mind, depending on what country, of course, they were going to. Second goal that we worked on with Beth was creative problem solving. So every episode has a big problem that these characters have to overcome. And that can be done in a very casual way, or it can be done in a specific way. So the way Beth really encouraged us and the writing team to deal with the goals on Super Wings was through these 4 elements: showing flexible thinking, predicting possible outcomes, observing and evaluating what's happening, and showing perseverance, that you have to keep on trying. So these types of goals are really important in your pitch meeting. And I have to tell you, when we first pitched the show to Sprout in the US, they were in Philadelphia at the time. When they first saw the Bible, they said, this looks a lot like a toy commercial, and Sprout's an educational network. Why is this an IP that we would be interested in? And we spent a lot of time talking through these goals with the buyers at Sprout. And ultimately, they came around to see that this was more than just a toy commercial. These were good stories. These were stories that were supported by curriculum. So curriculum can really help you, depending on who your buyer is. And then, of course, you have to deliver on it once you promise it. So as I said, on our show and on most of our shows, we've had very thorough research in terms of a team that evaluates scripts, gives script comments, does some formative testing, which means showing images, sometimes storyboards, sometimes animatics to kids, getting their feedback. So it's a thorough process, and it definitely adds to your costs, but the costs are not excessive, and they really help your show to be a better show. And then in the Bible, there's always a summary. So summary is usually pretty short. There's usually a very beautiful kind of hero image, like this one that shows kids waving to the super wings in the sky. And then this is the team page. So I only do team pages when there's multiple teams, or when you want to provide detail about your team, assuming you have a team. So this could be one company, it could be 3 companies. In this case, we wanted to highlight that there was a toy company, a great production studio in Korea, and my team in New York handling the pre-production, the writing, the research. So this is part of the pitch. The buyers want to know who's going to be making the show. And these days, they really tend to care a lot about who the showrunner is, who the head writer is. They want to ensure that there's some authenticity and diversity in your team. The team page is really a very important part of the document. And typically your team has a background that really supports the nature of the content that you've created, that you're pitching. And then this is the back cover of this Bible. And as you see, it has contact information. It's a very simple thing, but it's really important that if someone sees your Bible, that they know how to contact you. And remember, the person that you pitch to is not always the person who actually makes the decisions. In fact, quite often they're the early gatekeeper. And if they like your pitch, they bring it back to their team. And then they have to kind of repitch your pitch to their bosses. And this happens sometimes it's a small group, sometimes it's a gigantic group that includes licensing people, distribution people, production people. So you really want it to be that your Bible is kind of a all-inclusive and self-pitching document. You don't want to send them some images in an email and some text in another email, and your contact information is not really anywhere to be found. You want it to be a really nice, tight, professional package, so that even if somebody ends up Xeroxing or copying your Bible on a bad copier, that it still kind of works. It still conveys the critical messages that decision makers need to make their decisions. So to summarize, in my experience, you really don't need animation to pitch an animated show. And in fact, having the animation can hurt you as much as it can help you. In my experience, what you really need to sell a show, to get interest, is a really well-written, well-designed show Bible with a good curriculum, and then also a great pilot script. Because if anybody likes your Bible, their first question is going to be, do you have any scripts? And they're not going to want 10 scripts. They're going to want 1 or 2. and they're going to read them very carefully, and they're very good at reading scripts. They're very good at seeing, does this have legs? Could this sustain for 2 seasons, 3 seasons, 4 seasons? So having fewer materials that are really high quality is something I strongly recommend over having a volume of materials or producing a lot of animation. If you're going to show any animation, I strongly recommend you have maybe 1 minute of animation that shows your main characters. It shows the energy of your show. I tend to do songs for 1 minute pitch trailers, and often those songs end up being the songs for the show later on. But songs are great because they're dynamic, they're fun to watch, you can get away with a lot of fun editing. I don't recommend doing a minute-long scene of 2 characters talking. It just tends to be a little too static. Even though it's only a minute, people can get bored in a minute very easily. So I tend to recommend things that really move for those trailers if you're going to make a trailer. But again, you don't really have to have a trailer. A good buyer can see into a Bible and know whether that's going to work or not without the animation. And animation can just as easily hurt if the quality isn't there. If your team says, well, it's better to show this even though it's not in color, it's not really finished, but we wanted to give you a taste. I tend not to think that helps. I think better to show nothing than to show something that you feel isn't your best work, because that 1 minute of animation is going to be looked at very carefully by a lot of people who are used to seeing world-class stuff. So I always recommend the Bible and the pilot first and foremost to get pre-sales, which is what you're usually looking for when you first pitch a Bible, is to get someone to come in early to provide some investment, to provide a platform. So those are my general thoughts about preschool Bibles. Certainly, if you have any questions, type them in the chat. I will be here to answer them, as many as I can. And I just want to thank you for your time and attention. And that's it.